Happy holidays and welcome back to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. We're hard at work here in the podcast mines getting one more ready for before the year's over for all you lovely listeners out there. As always, I'm your host G, and with me, also as always, my co-host Iro.
Happy holidays from the Earth Cult. Everyone here on Earth wishes you happy holidays.
Because we will one day return to the promised land.
Terra is my mother, Terra in my hand.
Merry Christmas. You know, that's the problem with this, happy holidays bullshit. All the people are forgetting the real meaning of Christmas is... What was it again? Terra in my heart, Terra in my...
Terra's my mother, Terra in my hand.
That's such a... what a weird... Anyways, point is... 'Tis the season for giving, because Legend of the Galactic Heroes might have given us the best gift of all. And that gift is 3 more fantastic episodes of the legendary 1988 OVA.
Yeah, we've got episode 33, Fortress vs. Fortress. Episode 34, The Return. And episode 35, Determination and Ambition.
Indeed, indeed. And, you know... As I always say, what a trio of episodes.
It's an interesting couple of episodes this time.
More than just a little bit interesting. I'm going to have to come up with new superlatives because...
I'm actually just really glad, and I'm tickled that we decided before we even began that we should do 3-episode chunks, and those 3-episode chunks have just worked out really well for pacing.
Totally. It keeps working out for us, weirdly enough. So, I feel like this episode might go on a bit long, depending on how into the weeds we get, so we better just get started.
Yeah.
So...
Fortress versus Fortress, we just, the cliffhanger of last episode.
Yeah, the amazing cliffhanger.
Geyersburg Fortress opening fire with its Death Star laser on Iserlohn.
Yeah. So, episode 33 just kicks off with, basically... Geyersburg and Iserlohn just basically trading shots with each other with their giant laser cannons.
Yeah.
We see that Kazalnu is kind of
apprehensive about mutually
about this whole thing. Yeah, but you know what? I think we luckily got Schenkopp is right. In this situation, it's like, well, we can't just let them fucking shoot at us. We got to do something. So they do, and It's all about, because this whole battle, as we talked about last week, is, we just got to stall long enough for Yang to get here. Because Yang's going to come here, and he's going to be bringing the whole fleet with him.
Yeah, totally. I'll bring the entire first fleet. Right, everyone?
Or at least that's what would happen if the FPA were not fucking self-defeating to the bitter end.
Yeah, we're introduced here to, Walter Islands, who was speaking with Job Trunicht last week. And, he's like, oh no, you can't take the first fleet. How would we defend the capital then? From threats. Even though the Empire's knocking on Iserlohn.
Right, it's like, you dumbass, you idiot, you fool. Iserlohn is the front door of the FPA at this point. If you don't guard that, just
done screwed. And
look, we get it,
they're
right?
Going back to that Artemis necklace excuse.
Yes. Look, we get it, right? The FPA is not only stupid, but also totally in the pocket of Phezzan. So,
right.
It's not like we can expect much for them. But they basically tell Yang, hey, you're gonna have to go collect some secondary fleets from the other outlying colonies.
Yep. Not
this will take extra time or anything.
Just back to giving Yang Wenli these slapshod, cobbled together fleets to win battles.
It's absurd, right? They literally hear that the Empire with 1 million troops or something, right? 1 million troops and 15,000 ships and, a fucking miniature Death Star thing are literally at the front door of Iserlohn. And the FPA is still I don't know, Young, figure it out yourself. It's
just after we took you away to yell at you for a while.
Right, it's just, So, anyways.
Among the forces Yang is given is what? Rear Admiral Alarcon. who was court-martialed for shooting civilians and POWs.
You know,
what a nice
some
guy.
might say in the old book of tactics, not a good move. But who am I to say?
Yeah,
so,
as Yang says, troops are troops.
Yep. But we cut back to Iserlohn, where we find out that the Empire is launching the first wave of their plan, which is to attempt to breach Iserlohn with some troops.
Ship-to-ship combat's kind of a stalemate because they're both close enough to just fire their giant fuck-off laser guns.
Right. It's an interesting impasse of sorts. So, the Empire kind of makes the first move here. Try to pull a Yang Wenli, basically, land their troops on Iserlohn. But what they forgot is that motherfucking Schenkopp and the Rosenritter are at Iserlohn, and I understand it's been a while since we've seen the Rosenritter just just run fucking roughshod over some fools, but we are reminded once again why Schenkopp and the Rosenritter are not to be fucked with. Because
this great extended sequence of melee combat with both sides just on their fucking Star Wars hover bikes.
Yes, on fucking bikes.
Skating over the reflective ocean of Iserlohn.
Yes, the liquid metal ocean of Iserlohn. It's such a fantastic, truly, old school classic sci-fi image, of these fucking literal, knights in powered armor with axes riding hover bikes over a liquid metal ocean. It's wonderful. It's
great. It does kind of a little bit remind me of when we watched Yamato 2199 with
oh yeah,
here are these convenient clouds of space dust to make water explosions.
Yes. I mean, it's a sci-fi trope. If space isn't portrayed as air, then it's portrayed as an ocean. So,
yeah.
But yes, we get to watch Schenkopp and the Rosenritter just fucking brutalize these Empire troops. It's
great.
It's amazing.
I haven't seen a display of such tactical acumen since episode 7, right?
Yeah, totally.
When they first took Iserlohn.
Totally. It's speaking of tactical acumen, I mean that's kind of really what makes the next couple of episodes so fun to watch. It's just it really is just all about the FPA and the Empire playing against each other, reacting to each other's plans, and we'll kind of get into that, So basically the Schenkopp fends off the Empire incursion and comes back to the bridge of Iserlohn and brings up the important point that I hadn't actually realized until Schenkopp brought it up.
Kazalnu was worried that if any of the troops are captured, then they could be tortured and perhaps give up the information that Yang Wenli is not present at Iserlohn.
Right. We had all initially assumed, this is going to be, ship-to-ship battles. There's not going to be time to capture POWs and interrogate them, but with these kind of boarding actions, actually, this is a very real fear, a very real angle that the FPA has to worry about.
Mm-hmm. And Schenkopp says, well, when you fight in space, there aren't always corpses left behind for us to find. Yeah. So anyone missing is considered dead.
Right. But, Schenkopp being Schenkopp is don't worry. I got a plan.
A trick. Got a plan.
That we will see later. Play out in the next episode. But so we get back to
entire sequence. We keep repeatedly cut back to Yang Wenli on his ship that's heading back towards Iserlohn, basically giving running commentary of the battle because his tactical mind is so sound that he can predict what's probably going on.
Yes, it's kind of a magnificent excuse to basically, as you said, give Yang the opportunity to just give literal sports game play-by-plays on this battle. It's where Yang's well, if I was there and I was controlling the Empire, I would do this. I think that would be the tactical action to make here. And then lo and behold, that's exactly what they do. Right. It's perfect, but also because it's Yang Wenli, we can believe, that he would nail these with such pinpoint accuracy.
Yeah.
But anyways, we return to Iserlohn and Geiersberg still trading blows, and
and Geiersberg starts moving in close.
Yeah, Kempf has a plan here, and we kind of characterize Kempf as kind of a stiff, straightforward man, probably a good leader to his men, but not particularly innovative. But I got to admit, he pulls off a hell of a plan here.
It's a pretty cool plan.
It's a really good plan. So basically, Geiersberg and Geiersberg charges Iserlohn.
Yeah, well, he sends all of his what it does. He sends the fleet around to the back of Iserlohn.
Yes. First he does that. He sends them around to the back of Iserlohn, which makes a broad amount of tactical sense in a siege. But even with Iserlohn's like weird floating turrets, but the real ingenuity of this plan comes from the fact that he trades on the fact that Iserlohn has more mass than Geiersberg.
Yeah.
And basically uses Geiersberg's, because Geiersberg is also such a large body, it has its own gravitational pull, and what he does is he moves close enough to Iserlohn that it pulls the liquid metal ocean until it submerges
over the top of
the Thor hammer.
Thor gun,
yeah, preventing it from firing.
And because of Iserlohn's gravity on Geiersberg's armor becomes thicker in the front, protecting it from the Thor's hammer fire.
Yes, it's an ingenious tactic.
I was really impressed, actually.
Yeah,
we've been told repeatedly that Iserlohn has a liquid metal armor,
right?
And so logically, it would be affected by tidal
gravitational pull. Yeah,
it's just because it's not orbiting anything. It's basically free floating in space.
Right. It's a really these are the kind of plots that make me love sci-fi and space operas and just this genre in general, because it is an ingenious tactic that in many ways is the equivalent of, for example, a medieval general using the weather or the terrain against his opponent, but it's extrapolated to the final battlefield, space, the frontier, and
my favorite thing about this was that not only does it make sense from a standpoint that it would work, but it made sense that nobody in universe had thought of it.
Yeah, because
whereas I think when you start to talk about terrain or weather, you can sometimes fall into the trap of why didn't they just notice that there was a cliff here or something like that?
Right.
Whereas this, there is no normal situation where Iserlohn would ever be affected by such things.
Right, this type of battle is unheard of. In many ways, this Geiersberg versus Iserlohn fight is kind of treading new ground for space warfare.
Another page to the history of the galaxy.
Indeed, yeah, and not only does it pull the metal alloy towards Geiersberg, but it leaves the back exposed, which allows the fleet to land a heavy blow on Iserlohn.
Yeah, kind of keep the FPA troops stuck in, basically. Yeah.
And then, naturally, as a result of this, we return to Yang, where he decides to give us his spiel on the nature of governance.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. After Julian running to go sortie and thinking about how Yang and Frederica really should hook up.
Yes.
Why is he taking so long?
Yeah. Oh, Julian. Always has everybody's
best interest at heart, I guess.
But because naturally the segue there is for Yang to talk about how government, there is no inherent good or bad government. The point of a government is how you run it for the good of society. And I kind of love that Yang basically has a conversation that we here in the podcast have had multiple times about Legend of the Galactic Heroes. He basically codifies it here that,
that
in theory,
Reinhardt will probably run a good government, and there will be strong reform and just
right. He recognizes that the inherent advantage of an autocratic government is that dictatorships can advance. Yeah, they can advance reform in the government far faster than democracy, in theory, because there's no red tape, there's no bureaucracy. If your
what
word
the boss
is law,
says goes.
Yeah, but then Yang also says, but that's great for now. But Reinhard is not immortal. He is not some god emperor figure. He'll die one day, or someday someone will stab him in the back or overthrow him. And who comes after him? Are they going to be as fair and egalitarian and intelligent and skilled? And the answer is probably not.
Right, which is why he's okay with the Empire existing, is more okay with the Empire existing as a separate entity that coexists with the FPA,
right,
than them taking over everything.
Yes, it essentially gets to this idea that, yeah, of course the Empire is bad, but it's bad in the sense of it's bad because of the fundamental type of government it is, and how in many ways what we're watching right now is the reason why it's so easy to dump on the FPA is because we are watching a democracy at its lowest point, and an autocracy at its highest point.
I mean, even Yang has basically admitted that its current state right now, the Empire is broadly better off than the FPA.
But, Yang, ever the historian, also kind of correctly surmises that, in the long run, in the span of centuries, will it always be the best thing for the people? And he surmises that probably not, right now, yes, the ostensibly democratic FPA is far worse a place to live in, but once you average things out across centuries, the fundamental idea is that, hey, a democracy sucks now, but theoretically you can vote in a better democracy. A bad dictatorship, there's only one way to get rid of a bad dictatorship, and
sharpen the guillotines.
Yeah, basically.
I also want to highlight two other things from this segment. Yang saying, "If only Kircheis were here."
Yes, this is the beginning of a trend. Yeah, a common refrain we begin to see, especially in these 3 episodes. They've said it earlier before, but I would say it is this trio of episodes where we really start to recognize that a lot of characters begin to talk about how, man, if only Kircheis were here. If only Kircheis were here, this situation would be so much different. If only Kircheis were here, maybe we could know peace. If Kircheis were here,
been a bridge between the FPA and the Empire.
Yes. If Kircheis were here, he would speak to Reinhard. It's just
he would vouch for coexistence.
Yes, and I mean the sad truth is, it's
probably not wrong.
Kircheis was the best the Empire had. Frankly, I do love a lot of the Empire cast now, but I love them in the way that I love fictional characters. They're flawed but interesting. Whereas Kircheis, he was one of the good ones, and we lost him too soon.
Indeed.
But anyways,
the second thing I wanted to highlight is this line. It's clearly bad, both politically and morally, to kill a 7-year-old.
Yes, I'm glad you remembered that, because yes, Yang just kind of hitting us all with the basic facts of life. The wisdom that we all should try to strive to live to.
Don't kill kids.
Don't kill kids.
It's bad on every account.
10-year-olds count as kids. Sorry.
They do.
Sorry, dog. I don't care. I don't care what your government is run like, or what your age of consent is, or how early people can vote. Don't kill kids.
It's real bad.
It's a bad look.
Back to Iserlohn.
Yes.
Everyone's still launching and fighting away.
Yes. We get some. Well. Okay, maybe you're gonna have to help me here, because yes, I my note here
Poplan
just says, Poplan, you're all right, but I have no clue what that applies to anymore.
Julian goes get an elevator to head to the hangar, and Poplan runs in, and at the
last second.
Oh
yes, okay.
Half naked, pulling his clothes on.
Right, now I remember.
Because he was having some fun with the ladies of Iserlohn.
Look, man.
You never know when you're gonna, fall in battle, I guess.
Yeah, when every day's your last, you gotta live it up, man.
Yeah, but yes. As they launch with this pretty decent launch sequence.
Yeah. We get that good old like Battle of Armlitzer tier animation bump where all of a sudden, everything's looking way better.
Yep, Poplan drops advice to think of the pretty girl you have a thing for and her smiling face, and then God will get jealous and abandon you, and you'll be protected by the devil's own luck.
Yes. He's basically like, do not think of nation, do not think of country. Like, that's all bullshit. Just think about the lovely bosom waiting for you after the battle. And you know what? Like, Poplan may be kind of a charlatan and a perv, but also, dude is alright. It's the kind of frank realness that's up there with, Yang's speech about how this is,
This is a pointless battle.
This is a pointless battle. Yes, like, this is a worthless battle to die in. But, yeah,
meanwhile, Schenkopp's ordering custom coffee.
Right, meanwhile, Schenkopp is ordering his last coffee, or what he constantly seems to be implying is his last coffee. Which,
even if I die, I don't want to compromise on women or coffee.
Yes,
Schenkopp says.
If that's what they put eventually on his gravestone, it's not the worst. It's not the worst epitaph to have. Don't compromise on women and coffee. That's a lot of good wisdom being dropped by the FPA this episode.
Yeah, and Merkatz approaches Kazanu and asks to be given command of the fleet.
Yeah, and we kind of get a good moment here where he's talking with Schenkopp and Dusty, and kind of being like, "Look, I know y'all know who I am. Like, let's not be cute about it here, but also, I don't want to die any more than you guys do. So,
right,
trust me, all right." And you get that kind of, that good line from Dusty that's like, I trust the Yang. I believe in the Yang that believes in Merkatz, basically.
Yeah.
Don't believe in yourself. Believe in the me that believes in Merkatz.
Indeed. Meanwhile, while the FPA is kind of struggling to keep afloat in this current situation, Kempf and Muller Kempf is excited, saying, "Now maybe we could rename this to the Geiersberg Corridor."
Or the Kempf-Muller corridor. Kempf. I appreciate his optimism. If even as we would, begin to find out later, it would perhaps be better to describe his arrogance, but,
Yeah. And,
just,
Muller is, his fleet is driven away by Merkatz.
Yeah, basically, what happened is this the... Yes, this is what happened. So Muller takes a fleet to take on, to kind of what he believes to be the killing blow on Iserlohn, right? Because he's the vice commander of this operation. Kempf actually is the one who holds operational authority. Mm-hmm. But Muller kind of gets it into his head that, if I strike now on their weak points, like, I can be the one who takes out Iserlohn. They're not gonna call it the Kempf-Muller corridor. They're gonna call it the Muller-Kempf corridor. And so Muller kind of goes in, and so this is where Merkatz comes out with the fleet.
Right. And Muller's like, he's like, he realizes the trap or whatever, but then psychs himself out because he's like, Kempf said, yeah, Yang Wenli is a strange, mysterious man with odd tactics. I better not do that. This is just what they want me to do. Right.
He dupes himself into falling into their trap, which continues the amazing grand tradition of Empire commanders just wigging themselves out because of their fear of Yang Wenli and his duplicitous plots.
Basically ends up with Merkatz's fleet on one side and Iserlohn's gun turrets on the other.
Right, and gets a real real messed up here. Before all of that, though, I actually did want to bring up real briefly, because speaking of really cool sci-fi space age military tactics, we kind of get this great moment where Muller is attacking the back because he's like, oh, like they won't move. They won't dare move Iserlohn's main cannon towards me. Like, they have to keep it pointed at Geiersberg because, it's kind of a game of chicken.
They also think it's still submerged.
Right. But then all of a sudden, the beam comes out, and not only does it come out, but it's refracting around the, like, gravitational
curvature,
right, the curvature of Iserlohn, and
so yeah, we finally got this thing operational, but it only shoots at this weird angle.
Right. Basically, they find a way to refract the beam of the Thor hammer to still hit behind it.
I don't know if it was on purpose, like, so much as a desperate maneuver.
Right, but and that's kind of what I love about it, right? Is we might as well just get into it now, because basically with Muller kind of getting busted up, Kempf sends in a fleet to bail him out, and they rescue Muller. But you can kind of already see an interesting element here where the FPA is very united in their cause to
not die.
To not get fucking killed, whereas the Empire is actually starting to fragment a little bit here in their leadership. You can kind of start to see Muller chafe a little bit under Kempf's command. And
even some subordinates are
noticing it.
Kempf wants to hurry up and capture it to lessen the gap between him, Mittermeyer, and Reuenthal.
Right. Like, there's this really fascinating element of, like, yes, the Empire has the clear advantage in this battle, but what is maybe actually making the difference is that the FPA leadership is really unified, and some of that is actually because Yang assembled such a good and talented group of people. Like, yes, we always talk about Yang Wenli, Magician Yang, Miracle Yang. He's always the one kind of pulling everybody out of the fire, but a lot of his great accomplishments are because he surrounds himself. He doesn't have his Mittermeyers and Reuenthals and Obersteins and Bittenfields, and such, but he has a talented group of people, and even without him, they're making do in a way that I really liked in this episode.
Yeah, like, even as you said, like, Dusty Attenborough, just from that line, he clearly doesn't trust Merkatz all the way, but is willing to, let him take command. Yeah,
because he recognized that, well, it's not going to do us any good if I just argue for 30 minutes against Merkatz. Like, we need this dude in that fleet, and we need him to be busting their shit up as soon as possible, regardless of my feelings on the matter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a fun or interesting comparison with the Empire, where, in Season 1, because it was so much about Reinhard and Kircheis, we were kind of given this illusion that, Reinhard has this really iron grip on his commanders. But what we're beginning to find out in Season 2 as they get more and more developed is they're not nearly as unified as they appear.
Yeah, they're kind of all competing for favor.
Right, and this is maybe one of those, like, very subtle illustrations of the weakness of an autocracy, is that when there's one person at the top, when you only have one boss, that also means you're competing with everybody else to impress that one boss. And there's a very appreciable awareness in Reinhard's leadership, where everybody, like, nobody's acting cute about it. Everybody knows Mittermeyer and Reuenthal are the top dogs amongst the admirals. Everybody knows this. Yeah. And everybody knows there's still a hierarchy throughout the rest of it, right? Like, Bittenfield took a huge blow to his standing because of Armlitzer, whereas, Kempf hasn't really had a chance to distinguish himself. And then Mueller's even below him because he's, like, the newest addition. So you kind of have this fascinating, power play that makes you realize, yes, they're all broadly unified in the way that Reinhard wants them to, because, as he said in, the prior episodes, wars unite people. But in a way is because they hold the advantage.
Yeah, actually, exactly as you said, having a common enemy. Bring people together.
Yeah, but in a weird way, because they have the clear advantage, in a way they're complacent and maybe not as psychologically prepared for this battle in the way the FPA are. And, I apologize to our listeners. I sometimes go on these weird historical / tactical warfare tangents.
I'm telling you, those are the best parts.
But this is kind of the reason why I really like this episode is because it's a fantastic siege episode. It's something that's almost entirely unheard of in anime, to be honest, is a really, really good portrayal of a siege. Sieges are, not to get too military nerd here, but sieges are kind of my favorite kind of battle to read about because they're so dramatic and there are just so many factors that play into them. Like, maybe, you've read the, Sun Tzu's Art of War and heard the old chestnut, like, don't besiege an enemy fortress unless you have at least a 3 or 5-to-1 advantage. And there's a lot of reasons for that beyond just, it's because the defenders are holed up in a fortress. I mean, that is true, but there are a lot of really fascinating... The really fascinating aspect of a siege, and, we'll use this battle to kind of illustrate that, is the motivations of each side. For example, the FPA, their motivation is to survive. This is a very unifying motivation. You can read throughout history that oftentimes a lot of sieges succeed not because... they had the better men or better training, but just they held out. They had more grit, and that's often because their motivation is a lot more tangible. Victory is victory. Victories are good. Everybody wants to win battles, but
everyone wants to live more than that.
Yes, when the enemy is knocking at your door, they have a gun that's slightly smaller than yours, but still extremely dangerous. You put aside your differences quick, and you start sharing all of your ideas because you don't care about glory. You don't care about what happens after this battle because you don't even know if there's going to be an after this battle.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of caught in the situation of like, all right, like we got to hold out. How do we do that? Everybody give us your best ideas. Like everybody has to write something on the chalkboard. Like, I don't care how stupid your idea is, everybody has to at least contribute something to the board. And even if that idea is, we're going to shoot the Thor hammer around Iserlohn's orbit because, like, we'll refract the beams off of its gravitational pull.
The only way we can shoot it.
Like, you're still going to try it because, motherfucker, do you got any other better ideas? Whereas the attackers are kind of in a attackers are generally in the quote-unquote advantaged position, but they have their own worries. Cracking a fortress, especially one like Iserlohn, is not easy.
Iserlohn fully self-sufficient, as we've been told.
Not only that, but every self-respecting commander knows that a siege can't last forever because it's almost entirely impossible to completely cut off a besieged fortress. Inevitably, the ones that are being besieged will get the message out to the rest of their nation, to the rest of their army. And the army will send reinforcements. And in a traditional siege... you're going to
have to break them before the reinforcements arrive, because then you're dealing with attack on both sides.
Right, and not only that, but in a traditional siege, the defenders don't always just have to hide in their fortress. They can come out, and they can try to do damage, as we saw with Merkatz. And in even more dramatic examples, they can sometimes try to break out past your lines. The responsibility of the one who is besieging is you have to surround the fortress. You have to cover every exit, every side of the battle. Whereas the one who's being besieged technically only has to focus on one part of it because their goal is just to break out. Or in the case of their hopeful reinforcements, break in. So while it might seem obvious that, the ones who are attacking have the advantage, they have their own concerns. And we were talking about, Kempf is kind of rushing into this battle, but in a ways, he has his own motivation for that as well. The longer this battle takes, the higher the likelihood that Yang's going to get here. And, I mean, he doesn't know that Yang isn't there, but reinforcements will be there. And that's not good for... That's never good for your side when that happens. So, I think in relation to that, sorry, folks, I'm going to keep going here just a little bit longer. I'm sorry. I promise we will get to episode 34 in a couple minutes. Is that this battle, despite the various advantages and disadvantages, it's actually a super even battle.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the only times this happened so far.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is, really satisfying to watch, because think about, like, other anime, or, like, what is the most, like, disappointing fight to watch? It's usually like, oh, when one side just totally blows the other out of the water. It's not a fun fight to watch because there's no struggle, there's no conflict. How can there be drama when one side clearly dominates the other? Sometimes that can be fun to watch. It's like junk food, right? It's sometimes fun to watch the hero just totally destroy the enemy effortlessly. But that's not good TV, Sorry, what were we gonna say, Hiro?
Yeah, I was pretty much agreed.
Oh, okay. but yeah.
When it's a good, like, climactic fight, you want there to be back and forth.
Yes, and I think that's what works really effectively here. Is it's kind of like real battles, right? Like, again, in history, battles don't tend to just be like, oh, side A crashed into side B, and then they fought until one side lost. It's like, oh, side A tried this, and then when side B counterattacked with this technique, then side A tried this tactic, and that caught side B off guard long enough to blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of what you see here with this battle between Iserlohn and Geiersberg. First, Geiersberg leads off with, kind of what would be your standard plan A, land the dudes on Iserlohn. Then side B responds by sending their own forces out and drive them back. Then, Geiersberg, the Empire, tries a new thing. A truly ingenious plan, honestly. Like, fantastic tactic. We're talking about the gravity thing. And, it's not like the FPA just fucking lie down and die. They try things, and their plans are desperate, but they have to try them because the alternative is what? Like, giving up? So they react in turn. And it's that back and forth that I think makes a battle like this feel really compelling, because unlike any of the other battles I feel we've watched in Legend of the Galactic Heroes up till now, this is the first one where I truly did not know. Yeah, and I don't think we were truly sure which side was going to come out, in the end for this one,
Right.
But yeah, so to kind of just continue that that tangent into the next episode, where they kind of continue the battle.
Yeah, but Muller has gotten information out of a dying POW that Yang Wenli is not present, as was big cliffhanger in episode 33.
Yes, Muller has.
Then the very start of episode 34 is like,
oh, it's so good.
Is the Hyperion still there? Yeah, and also a POW told us that they were told to tell us the Yang Wenli is not here to confuse us.
And so we find out that Schenkopp's plan is just the glorious, I know that you know that I know that you know that I know, etc. It's
just psych them out.
Just psych them out, make them second guess themselves. And the thing is, like, funnily enough, Muller and Kempf do eventually arrive at the correct conclusion that...
Well, it's like Muller decides Yang Wenli's probably not there. I need to send my fleet out to capture the inevitable reinforcements when he does arrive.
Yes.
And Kempf is like, why are you removing all of your fleets away from the battle?
Bring
them back.
Yes.
And Muller, cedes to Kempf's authority.
Yeah, but he's not happy about it, but he does. And that's then when they discuss the Yang question. Schrödinger's Yang, If you do not open this Iserlohn box, Yang is both there and not there at the same time. But once you open up Iserlohn, you discover Yang was actually there, and it was part of his dubious plan the whole time. Or that Yang wasn't there, and you fooled yourself.
Well, you see, Yang Wenli doesn't look at all like a soldier, and in that lies his dreadful power.
Yes, the fantastic line about Yang's dreadful power.
You don't know what kind of weird tricks he's going to use. Maybe he's there, maybe he's not. He's probably there and just trying to trick us.
Yeah, who has the better tagline now between Dreadful Yang and the living work of art that is Reinhard von Lohengrin? These guys just keep piling on good titles.
Yeah, but we also get a bit of the Empire where Reinhardt is sending Mittermeyer and Reuenthal off to be reinforcements.
Yes. I mean, I think he kind of correctly surmises that from Kempf's message, to go back real quick, Kempf tells the messengers to send out just a message, just one sentence, and it is, "We currently hold the advantage."
Right.
And Reinhardt kind of
says it all.
Yeah, it kind of says it all, which is that Reinhardt kind of correctly surmises that Kempf is broadly winning, but if he were actually winning, if he was actually winning this fight, he would be saying a lot more. So, and they kind of, funnily enough, Reinhardt and Yang independently arrived at the conclusion that
the easy way to win this battle would have just been to ram Geiersburg into Iserlohn and destroy both.
Yes, because the point of this is like, well, why would you do that? They'll both get destroyed. But the point isn't that they'll both get destroyed. The point is that
Iserlohn will be gone.
Iserlohn will be gone, and with it, the FPA's only advantage. Like, in terms of manpower, fleet power, and command structure, the Empire is superior by every metric. This Empire would win every conventional battle. The only thing stopping them is Iserlohn. And so both Yang and Reinhardt kind of correctly guessed that actually, if your long-term goal is to destroy the FPA, it's totally fine to take a shot on the nose right now. Sure, lose Geiersburg, lose some men, but, whereas, like, in this hypothetical situation where they kind of mutually kill each other, the Empire's only taking a shot to the nose, whereas, at the same time, you're, like, breaking the FPA's legs in the same blow, so, one of those two can keep fighting, but they kind of luck out because Kempf's, as we've kind of surmised, he's a pretty traditional guy. He wants to win this, the proper way. But and in many ways that, we begin to realize that this maybe is the beginning of his undoing.
Meanwhile, Phezzan, the FPA, like, politician guy.
Yes, we keep forgetting his name, but the one that is the guy who isn't Rubinsky, but does all of Rubinsky's, work for him.
Oh, okay. I have a screenshot here. Commissioner Henslow. I believe he is the liaison to Phezzan.
You're talking about the FPA guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Phezzan basically calls out Henslow and the FPA as a whole on their idiocy to drag Yang away from Iserlohn at the most crucial moments.
Right. He's like, why did you do that? The Empire's knocking on our door. I'm like, well, we didn't say you had to.
Right, we just
your own fault.
We just whispered it into your ears, and you fell for it. And then, as if the FBA could not be more stupid, after literally being tricked into mistrusting Yang, get subsequently tricked again into mistrusting Yang Wenli.
Fucking conversation.
And it's like, are you children? Are you goldfish? Do you not have any long-term or even short-term memory? Like, literally, this happens in the same conversation. In the same conversation where Henslow is saying, hey, why'd you trick us into dragging Yang away from Iserlohn? He also gets tricked into, Yang might be up to no good. You're right, Phezzan guy. It's like, what? Like,
it's ridiculous. It's pretty silly.
Like, I get it, right? Like, the FPA is a fascinating look into, like, what are the weaknesses of democracy? Why and how can democracies fall? And, like, why do politicians and why do people in power make these selfish and, like, stupid and short-sighted choices they do? And, like, that, I feel, is a very important aspect of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. But this just feels like willful stupidity. Like...
Yeah,
I cannot even begin to understand the logic of Henslow or the FPA as a whole at this point.
Yeah, but Yang's getting close to Iserlohn.
Yes,
and setting up his plans.
Indeed.
That hopefully, if all goes well, the fleet that he is bringing and Iserlohn's fleet will be able to kind of pincer attack.
Yes.
The Empire's fleet.
Right. So basically, kind of like what we were just talking about, earlier in the podcast, but the perfect situation for a siege, for the side being besieged, is basically, this is tough to coordinate in the era before telecommunications, but the idea is basically you pincer attack the besiegers with both the reinforcements and the garrison, basically coming at them from both sides. And that's basically what the FPA is relying on. Whereas the Empire kind of approaches this with a pretty traditional, kind of very textbook way of dealing with sieges, which is their plan is to trick the Iserlohn fleet into attacking and then kind of overwhelming them with superior force, kind of cowing them into hiding back in Iserlohn.
Right, which will give the Empire
time to turn around, to deal with the reinforcements. This is kind of a very traditional way of dealing with sieges. It actually does take a pretty good commander to pull this off in the era before telecommunications, because you basically have to beat your first opponent so quickly that you have time to turn around and beat the second opponent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a pretty good plan. But unfortunately for Kempf, Iserlohn has found itself a new tactical genius.
Right. Everyone's sitting in the command room, and Julian's just bringing everyone their coffee, and also being like, "Hey, it's probably a trap. Allow me to explain the exact situation that we're in."
Right. And he fucking damn Julian.
There's this great line where they're like, before he was a student of Schenkopp or Poplan, he was a student of Yang Wenli.
Yes. And it's yeah, go ahead.
He's becoming the strongest out of all of them.
I kind of love it. I kind of love that
Iserlohn's people were the Digidestined, Julian would be TK.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say is Julian the Gohan of Legend of the Galactic Hero. He's the young kid with untapped potential that'll one day surpass all of us until Legend of the Galactic Hero Super comes out. But yeah, just damn Julian, fucking hell yeah! I kind of love that.
Good kid.
Julian is not only a good kid, maybe he's actually the best kid, but also he's becoming this really well-rounded individual.
Right, he's gone out in a ship and shot a bunch of guys down, and also hanging out on the bridge, giving tactical advice.
Yeah. Julian is kind of in a ways he's kind of he's becoming a crack shot with the gun. He's becoming a great pilot, and he's starting to pick up on Yang's tactics. I don't think Julian will ever necessarily become the tactical genius that Yang was, but also Yang was hella min-maxed,
Right.
Yang put all of his points into tactics and strategy, and 0 points into self-care, 0 points into marksmanship, 0 points into self-preservation, 0 points into alcohol tolerance. Whereas
the only way he can keep up is by the buffs he gets from drinking alcohol all the time.
Yes.
Keep those buffs applied on a regular basis.
Yes, totally. Yeah, Yang actually, he dual class. He took a level in Drunken Master, but he applies the buffs from the Drunken Master class to the Tactician class. It's it's pretty unorthodox build, but as we've seen here, it's really getting some results. And I think the mod team is probably going to address it in the next patch. But for now, if you're a new player and you're looking for the most meta strategy, you're gonna want to multi-class one level into a Drunken Master and then all your other levels into a Tactician.
Yep.
But yeah, it's kind of Julian's become this well-rounded he's kind of becoming the
we were joking that he's the Luke Skywalker of Legend of Galactic Heroes.
Yeah.
He's rapidly becoming almost a his own protagonist.
Yeah, he's got to become the protagonist of his own story. He's you could say he kind of maybe already is his own anime protagonist. Of another Legend of the Galactic Heroes anime that we just aren't watching.
Yeah, totally. Just occasionally serving Yang tea.
Yes. We had this thought. We had this thought while watching. I'm gonna give credit to fellow GLORIO member Gel for coming up with this one, but is Julian secretly the protagonist of his own slice of life harem anime set on Iserlohn?
Totally, I could see it now. Like Iserlohn's inside city area.
Yes,
you just got your Tokimeki memorial set up of Julian having to balance his multiple stats.
Yes,
while also dating girls and his duties as a pilot.
Yeah, it would be the perfect spin-off for the modern otaku audiences. You could have
Galactic Heroes dating sim.
Yeah, you could have like the tomboyish pilot who secretly likes girly stuff.
Or the flowers of Iserlohn.
Yeah, the flowers of Iserlohn. Yeah, you could have like the shy, bookish adjutant who Julian helps come out of her shell. You could have like the local girl who runs the bookshop.
Some just have to be civilians.
Yeah. You could have like a civilian who runs a bookshop, but is secretly an Imperial spy sent to seduce Julian.
The crazy scientist who helped run the hydroponics farm.
Yes, but Julian's raw animal magnetism is too much, and she genuinely falls in love with him. It's perfect. You could get cameos from all your favorite characters like Poplan and Louis Mashengo.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then of course, if you get the best ending of all
who's the guy who tells you your love stats with each of the girls?
Oh man, I guess it would have to be Poplan, right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Like Poplan being the lech he is, be like, well, when looking at I got deets on all the ladies. Oh man, and then would it be the case of if you beat all of the routes and you get the best ending with all the girls, you unlock the taboo, forbidden, hidden ending with Yang Wenli?
No.
Look, man, I'm not defending. I'm just saying that Fujoshi are they're into some shit, and
if anyone, it would be Frederick.
No, that doesn't feel right. See, that's even worse. I can't even believe you suggested that.
That's the type of shit it would actually be in the dating sim.
Yeah, no. I'm still saying it would be. Yeah, but that's why I'm saying it would be the. It would be the. Don't most dating sims have a joke route with a male character
I mean, Tokimeki Memorial does, and then they reveal that he was actually a lady all along.
Oh, well, I don't know they can really do that with Yang Wenli. Look, Look, I'm not saying it would be a good or healthy or legal romance. What I'm saying is that it would be hot and steamy and forbidden, and that's what the people like.
Maybe you're right.
Yang Wenli saying some horrible lines like, "I want to drink more than just your wine, Julian."
The secret route is he finds that Kircheis actually survived but has amnesia.
Yes. Oh shit! I can't believe I didn't even. Yes. All right. Yeah. Totally. Oh man, the secret Kircheis route. Of course. Why didn't I think of that sooner? Of course, yes.
He doesn't remember anything.
No. But... He washed up on the liquid metal shores of Iserlohn one day, and didn't remember who he was. So now he's working as a humble. You know what? Perfect. He's working as the humble assistant to the bookshop girl who's secretly an Imperial spy. But you never see him for most of the game, right? Because he's an assistant. He works in the back.
He's a side character, minor character.
He works in the stock room. He stocks the shelves. So you constantly get lines.
The thing is, you have to talk to him every time you visit the book girl, but you don't see his portrait ever.
Yeah. No, right? Because every time you go to the bookshelf,
right? Is what's her name in?
Yeah. Because some characters in dating sims don't have portraits because they usually don't matter enough, right?
But if you get the secret relationship values high enough,
right, it reveals that it's Kircheis. Yeah, and it's right, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's literally perfect. Oh my god!
Meanwhile, because of Julian's advice,
we here at the GLORIO blog at the GLORIO Network are happy to announce that we will be opening up our Kickstarter for the Legend of the Galactic Heroes Julian dating sim.
Yeah, the Flowers of Iserlohn.
We will begin with tiers starting at $1, where you'll get a thank you in the credits. At $5, you will get a steamy but safe for work wallpaper, and those of you paying $20 will get a digital copy of the game, plus a digital PDF of the concept art.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. So, speaking of Julian,
yeah, his advice. Merkatz takes him onto the Hyperion.
Yeah,
and they follow his advice. And as Kempf turns around to go fight the reinforcements, the Iserlohn garrison comes out and gets them from behind.
Yeah, it's a perfect.
Takes them out.
It's a perfect pincer plan, you know. And in a lot of ways, it works specifically because there's this great like unspoken cooperation between Yang's fleet and the Iserlohn fleet. Like, it's like they're operating. You know, it's like they're in the fucking Pacific Rim Drift or some shit. Like, I mean, I think Yang literally says out loud, like,
right.
Like, I hope Julian remembered my teachings about this highly specific tactical situation.
But no, I never wanted him to become a soldier.
Right, but it works fantastically. You know, we see Yang rushing in from the front, where he activates Formation D, where turns out the D stands for donut, because that's literally the shape this formation takes.
Right. It's like he's actually doing pretty well, even before the Iserlohn garrison shows up.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing, right? Even at a numerical disadvantage, it definitely feels like Yang. You know, Yang didn't go into this battle. Yang is never the kind of dude who goes into a battle with only one plan. You know, like he probably goes into that battle doing Formation D, hoping that like it'll deal a nasty blow to the Empire, and that hopefully the Iserlohn fleet will pick up on it. But you know, worst comes to worst.
Formation Donut works because of what has been stated about the Iserlohn corridor, that venturing into certain areas is not safe.
Basically there's completely like untraversable space, you know, in the Iserlohn corridor.
Right.
And so,
not that we've ever seen it.
Know what it looks like, or even know what it does to ships.
In D&T, it just looks like this crazy nebula tunnel.
So basically, Yang does this fantastic, like a donut standing up formation, where he basically stretches his fleet around the very perimeter of the Iserlohn corridor and then fires inwards on Kempf's fleet. And, like, you know, Kempf, literally the first thing Kempf says is a very, like, again,
go around him.
Right, like, here's the thing, I don't want to poo-poo on Kempf too much. Like, I have fun dunking on Bittenfield because Bittenfield is a dumbass. I mean, he's a dumbass who, like, has really good disses, but he's still a dumbass. Whereas, like, Kempf strikes me as a dude who's like, he's by the book and he's straightforward, but he's not a bad leader. He's not a bad tactician. It's just that, like, when he gets caught by the donut formation, he does, like, the first textbook thing you would do in this situation, which is go around. Turn around and surround the donut with our own donut, essentially. But they can't, because Yang has so expertly utilized the specific, like, physical constraints of the Iserlohn corridor to trap Kempf. And then he's getting, you know, as one Chuck Tingle might say, getting pounded in the butt by the Iserlohn fleet. Pounded in the butt by the Iserlohn fleet. The next Chuck Tingle.
I'm surprised he worked out that licensing deal with Yoshiki Tanaka.
You know, I'm looking forward to it. Somebody should tweet that to Chuck Tingle, maybe. Turn this into a reality. Anyways, it's totally caught Kempf off guard, and
can't break through forward, can't turn around.
Right. So, and here's the thing I kind of actually like about Kempf is that he's not the smartest tactician, but he never gives up, and I think that's actually the mark of like a truly good leader in a battle. Like even when he's caught in the donut formation, even when he's getting pounded in the butt, like. He does the next best thing, right? He says, break through. We'll break through we'll break through all the way to fucking Heinesen, right? Like, if we can break through past Yang's
fleet.
First
time anyone's broken.
Yeah. Like, because guess what? They only have the first fleet back at Heinesen, and yes, as they so constantly like to remind Yang, they don't have the Artemis necklace anymore. So, in a ways, there was almost a shot there where maybe if Kempf had enough fleet remaining, he maybe could have put up a fight.
And his basically his dying orders Geiersberg to ram Iserlohn.
Right. So essentially, Kempf realizes a little bit too late, however, that actually, oh wait, no, this isn't working. We're getting the shit pounded out of us. I should have just crashed Geiersberg into Iserlohn.
Yeah.
And
so there's a bunch of crazy sequences of
people
Empire troops blowing up and trying to evacuate.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
No, I get on the
ship. Before that, I kind of actually like this one because there's actually a very good contrast, right? At first, the evacuation is pretty orderly, I feel like. Like in the beginning, right, when it's just, hey, everybody, we got to get out of Geiersberg. We're crashing this into Iserlohn with no survivors, But then
all hands evacuate.
But then Yang's like, Yang literally pulls some fucking Yu-Gi-Oh shit. He's like, yes, you tried to crash Geiersberg and Iserlohn. You activated my trap card.
Right.
And his trap card is having Iserlohn and the entire fleet aim all of their cannons, all of their lasers at one side, where he has successfully somehow, I guess maybe thanks to Merkatz, identified the navigational computer. The navigational...
No, I think it's literally he blows up some of the engines so that the turn...
it does do the turn thing, but I thought he was specifically aiming for a navigational thing.
The navigational thing being engines will provide thrust.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I thought he was aiming. Not only was he hitting it on the side, but I thought he was doing it also hitting a specific part of Geiersberg. But, anyways, I digress. Yes, basically, fucking Yang basically puts spin on the baseball that is Geiersberg.
Right. So that it misses Iserlohn.
And then crashes into the Empire fleet, kind of utterly decimating them.
And then we open fire with a Thor hammer.
Is kind of a horrifying spectacle. Yes, because then here's where we get those scenes you were talking about, Iro.
Right.
Where then they get very panicked about trying to get off Geiersberg. Where we get some real ratchet shit. We had a scene of
combat knife and severs,
slices a dude's hand off. I know.
Dare you hold on to this ship? We're taking off.
Right, I know we have seen melee weapons in Legend of Galactic Heroes, and they are always very sharp. But there is just something surreal about watching a man fucking calmly take out his knife and just cut clean through another man's arm like it's fucking nothing.
Yeah,
it's wild, but kind of just an illustration of how poorly the evacuation has gone, and Yang being Yang kind of does this with a heavy heart, but also hey, it was either them or us.
Yeah, and what else are you gonna do?
Completely routs the Empire army.
Yep, and
with Muller just barely
survives.
Yes,
he breaks several ribs in an explosion, but he lives.
Indeed, and so kind of rest in peace, Kempf.
Yeah.
We all kind of saw this coming from 100 miles away the moment you introduced us to your family.
Indeed.
But, I'll say this, in your favor. I think considering the circumstances, Kempf probably did the best with what he did the best with A, what he had, and B, with the kind of, tactician he was. I'd say Kempf is kind of an example of, he's not brilliant, but he's competent. But against Yang Wenli, that's...
Yeah, and
it's not enough.
Muller from his hospital stretcher swears upon the great god Odin that one day he will wring Yang Wenli's neck.
Yes.
One day, no matter how many years it takes, he will destroy Yang Wenli.
Kind of beginning another common refrain. Other common refrain that we're starting to notice in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is various members of the Empire swearing a blood oath against Yang Wenli. And boy, those start adding up in these next couple of episodes.
Yep, but and the fleet that Yang brought with him foolishly charges off to chase the Empire remnants.
Because Yang Wenli's not ever allowed to just have a nice victory. Parts of his fleet, the ones he picked up on the way to Iserlohn, splinter off, in search of their own misguided glory. So, just another day in the life of Admiral Yang Wenli.
Yeah, and which relates right in episode 35, which opens with basically Mittermeyer and Reuenthal totally trashing the
FPA fleet. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even literally need to talk about it. Just they get utterly fucking trashed.
I'm pretty sure that one asshole admiral dies. So
sure, yeah,
sure, that's all.
Yeah, basically, just a bunch of goddamn fools. Yeah.
Yep.
But so we return to was it Phezzan at this point?
Yeah, after some wrap up.
Yeah.
With Yang and such. Yes. Okay.
I mean, I see a line in my notes that says, "If only Kircheis were alive."
Yeah,
but I don't remember.
Yang says that.
Oh, does he say it again? Yeah, of course he does.
Yup. How would this battle have gone if Kircheis was still alive?
No, who could say? But anyways, so we return to Phezzan, where they talk about the FPA's excessive military spending.
30% of their GDP.
In 2018 is a deeply uncomfortable and familiar sounding refrain. But yes, we can basically sum this up as just Phezzan gonna Phezzan. They're gonna keep being shady as fuck.
That's not all, because we also find out...
We get a new thing here. We get maybe the most interesting power play I've ever seen from...
This incredibly bizarre conversation that kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So Rainier Rubinsky is talking with his aide, Rupert, and, frickin' go over how the FPA is falling apart, and that Hilmar von Schaft is making increasingly ridiculous demands of Phezzan. So how about we just jimmy up some documents to make sure he gets sacked?
Yeah, basically.
And Rubinsky is like, all right, good job. Why don't you take tomorrow off? I believe it's the anniversary of your mother's death.
This is, I actually find...
Which is feels like Rubinsky being like, oh yeah, I have you under such close surveillance that I know such things.
Right.
But then sorry, go ahead.
No, you're kind of already getting into it. It's just basically at first blush, you might almost, if you were naive, you might almost think, oh, what a weird display of a very Phezzan way of displaying, goodwill to a fellow Phezzani. Take the day off. I heard your mom died yet tomorrow, or that, whatever.
Hey, it's this weird, almost shitty way of proving that you have dominance over this man.
Right.
Agent Rubinsky goes on to say that he knows this because Rupert is the bastard child of Agent Rubinsky.
Yep.
Which really kind of comes out of nowhere.
Phezzan just never stops surprising us.
Really bizarre to have this happen all of a sudden. Which then brings up this conversation where Rupert wants to make sure that he was hired because of his strong abilities in
right, and not just
his job. Right.
And I think it's kind of a very, it is totally out of nowhere, right? At least in the OVA, we don't know how it goes in the novels, but at least in the OVA, there's not really any foreshadowing whatsoever. It's just out of nowhere, fucking Rubinsky pulls a Luke, I am your father situation here. But what I think this actually does, what I think that the actually more important or interesting thing this does is finally show us a couple of cracks in Phezzan that we have not seen up until now. We know about the disparity between the Earth Cult and Rubinsky, but now we're starting to get a little bit of
internal problems unrelated to any other faction.
Yeah, and I think this is good. It's what we've needed to see from Phezzan, where we basically find out that Rupert is definitely, chafing a little bit under Rubinsky's, leadership. But not only that, is determined to eventually prove that not only is he worthy of succeeding Rubinsky, but that he will succeed Rubinsky through any means necessary.
Yeah.
And Rubinsky being Rubinsky is obviously very aware of this, and how this plays out down the line is, just Legend of the Galactic Heroes being the way it is, lays down the foundations of yet another fascinating plot thread.
And they use this also to segue into Reinhard talking about power being transferred through family lines versus being taken with your own hands.
Right. Yes, we had a conversation with Reinhard explaining, if somebody wants to take the power...
I hate blood dynasties.
Yeah, if somebody wants to backstab me, then they're welcome to try, basically. Which, I don't know, Reinhard, you...
It's like this crazy death wish he has.
I don't know if you should say that out loud, Reinhard. I'm not saying that's how things are gonna go, but when you just outright say stuff like, people are welcome to try and backstab me...
It's like it's a power play, right?
Yeah.
He's so... The living work of art that is Reinhard von Lohengram is insurmountable.
Indeed. But
also gets this report that Kempf lost 90% of his forces.
Yeah, 90% of his forces.
Not happy.
Which is what they say is 2 million men and 15,000 ships or something. It's
something like that. I feel like this is the first time the Empire really lost a battle.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of the first really big loss for the Empire. And Reinhard doesn't take it too well. We get a little bit of angry Reinhard here, kind of
throws his wine glass on the ground.
Yes, a brief glimpse into the kind of impulsive kind of side of Reinhard we have not seen since the days of Kircheis.
Yeah. Speaking of Kircheis, though.
Which leads directly to Reinhard talking to Kircheis.
An imaginary Kircheis.
Yes, an
yes. He basically retreats into his office, thinks about how terrible the loss was, but also thinks about what would Kircheis say.
Yes.
And he thinks that Kircheis would tell them to not be so hard on the survivors.
Yes.
Because they're loyal and useful men.
And, just punishing them for failure is just only going to further distance you from your subordinates. And,
Which I thought this was really interesting, actually, because, we've been talking the entire season so far about how Reinhard has gone, full on, Emperor Mask the entire time, but, which is not to say I condone certain actions that he's taken, but I feel like this is the first glimpse we've gotten in season 2 that he is, in scare quotes, not all gone.
Yeah, I think,
know what I mean?
I think this is actually a really good scene because it helps reinforce or remind us that, no, Reinhard has actually, I think...
He's done some bad stuff,
frankly, with killing the kids, I think he has already jumped off the slippery slope, but he has not fallen all the way down yet. He is sliding down, but there is an aspect of him that still remembers, Kircheis would not want that, right? There's that element that reminds him that, Kircheis, of all the people I've ever known, Kircheis would expect better from me. And the fact that he still listens to that side, I think, is an important illustration of Reinhard's character and the state he's in season 2. That he is, let's never get it twisted, right? Reinhard is morally becoming an increasingly worse person, but he's not any less capable of a leader, and he is still capable of doing what is right. But
and forgives Muller and everything.
Yeah.
Saying atone for losing his battle, but being victorious next time.
It's so
go recover.
It's so fucking dramatic.
It feels really out of character.
It's so fucking dramatic. Not the Reinhard thing, but more the whole Muller thing. Is
Muller goes this whole speech about how he lost so many soldiers and is so disgraced and deserves death.
Not only that, but like he's on his hands and knees. He's got a bandage on his head, a fresh bandage, and like he's like kowtowing so hard, like his wounds are opening up again, and he's like bleeding from the wound. And again, I fucking to all the fans out there to think that we dunk on the Empire a little too much. Don't get it twisted. We fucking love the Empire, and scenes like this are kind of wide because you would never get something this fucking melodramatic in the FPA. Like, once freaking Reinhard forgives Muller just collapses on the ground.
Right.
like it's just like it's this absurd that's the depth of the loyalty Reinhard inspires in his men. They'll drag themselves half dead before him to pledge their loyalty before collapsing. Like, all right, we get it. Like, Muller could have done this from a hospital bed. Like, in some way, like, what I love about the Empire is that the Empire, like, not just in the not just in the terms of the way they're portrayed narratively, but I think even in the universe, the Empire cares deeply about theatrics. Like, it's an important aspect of their society. Like, you can't just, subtly ask a disgraced politician, a disgraced noble to commit suicide in the comfort of their own
bring
home.
Him the poisoned wine.
You gotta drag them into the hallway. You gotta give them the poisoned wine that's sitting on the purple cushion. And then when they don't drink it, you gotta punch them in the jaw and force it down their throat, while everybody just kind of stands there and watches.
Yep. Oh, man.
Fucking... oh, man. Fucking, I love
great.
It. And then we get a scene where Reinhard is like... where Shaft is like, it was all their fault. Fucking not mine.
They're like, hey, so Shaft, what the hell?
Yeah.
He's like, my plan was perfect. It was Kemp's fault for sucking. Basically.
Yeah.
That's basically what he says.
Here's the thing. Shaft is full of shit, but also, like, by bare technicality, Shaft did his part of the equation. He made Geiersberg warp. Like,
it's true.
He did technically fulfill his job in this operation. Now, blaming this all on Kempf and Muller is still really shitty behavior, and in the end, he gets exactly what he deserves. But I will just bring up... I'll just say briefly, I feel like he's an asshole, but he's an asshole who's, like, kind of right, technically, in his defense of himself. He just does a very bad job of defending himself. Also, the charges of embezzlement and corruption and bribery and sharing of state secrets.
Tax evasion.
Yeah, those certainly don't help either, though. So
they have these documents, presumably from Phezzan.
Yes. And they cart him off, and we finally get a moment where Reinhard is like, and so we got the last, most important job, which I'll give to you, Mecklinger, because clearly...
All right, Mecklinger's artistic admiral.
You're the one who should deliver the news to the newly widowed Kempf family that... that he died in battle. Which, again... I love the Empire, man. I fucking love the Empire. Everybody, even the children in the Empire, are just born melodramatic.
Yeah, I'll destroy the Yang Wenli guy. Even the children swearing their blood oaths against Yang Wenli.
Even the children of the Empire have sworn to one day destroy the menace, the dreadful Yang Wenli. It's truly, it's something else.
Yeah.
But,
and Oberstein confronts Hilda over whether she put Reinhard up to showing mercy.
Which really says a lot about fucking Oberstein, that anytime Reinhard does a thing that's, like, morally good, his first instinct is,
he's showing weakness.
Right. Who dared... trick Reinhard into showing weakness. It clearly must be an outside influence. It can't ever just be Reinhard. It's like, what kind of misanthropic, deeply pessimistic view of humanity you must have, Oberstein?
Yeah.
But at the same time, after the conversation, Hilda does recognize that, in all likelihood, the only reason Reinhard made that choice is because he thought back to Kircheis.
Yeah.
And actually how precarious Reinhard's, like, mental I don't mean mental state in the sense of, oh, he's gonna fucking go crazy, but like his mental and moral state actually is. Like,
yeah,
Reinhard kind of morally and ethically and mentally hangs on this razor's edge.
Yep, he could just tip over and start doing the wrong thing at any moment.
Yeah, and like because of Kircheis's extremely poorly phrased last words, like it would be very easy for Reinhard to do some very horrible things in the name of Kircheis.
And Hilda sees it as her responsibility now to keep Reinhard on the right path.
Because
as best she can.
If only Kircheis were still alive.
If only Kircheis were here. And she decides that like what she needs to do is meet with Anna Rose.
Yeah, kind of an interesting plot point that we kind of just mentioned, but don't really see this episode. But I'm looking forward to that. We're not gonna really get into this conversation because we get it, right? Like, Legend of Galactic Heroes was written, 30 years ago. It's a story from a different time, but like, I feel like we never really get it. Like, I get it.
Not about to pass the special tests.
Yes. And again, that's not the end all be all of the quality of writing in a story. And honestly, again, let's not get it twisted. All the characters, even the female characters in Legend of the Galactic Heroes are very well written. Like, they're just as well written. It's a shame they don't really get as much screen time a lot of the time. We'll always go back to Jessica Edwards, but I think all of them, are interesting characters, and so I am definitely interested in seeing how that goes. But yeah, so we finally
some commentary between the cynic Reuenthal and the optimist Mittermeyer.
Yes, where kind of Reuenthal kind of knows the score here, or claims he does. That at the end of the day, like, yes, Mittermeyer, of course, Mittermeyer. Of course, Reinhard had nice things to say about Kempf.
Of course he gets full honors.
Yeah, of course he rolled out the red carpet for Kempf's funeral. Because guess what? Like, nice words and tears at a funeral are free. They don't cost a thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Muller,
medals are free.
Yeah. Kempf was no longer of use now that he's dead.
Yeah. It's not like doing any of that cost him anything. And it's a very, again, very misanthropic. Maybe not Oberstein level misanthropic, but
all of the admirals are just tools for Reinhard.
Yes. And I hate to say it, but like, as much as I don't tend to want to side with the cynic, I think Reuenthal is probably he's probably partially right at the very least. Like,
it says it says basically as much lip service as Reinhard gives to the dead, what does he give to the living?
Yeah.
He's incapable of such emotion.
Yeah. And Reuenthal kind of admits here that maybe, nothing explicit, but maybe he has his own ambitions. He kind of says, well, if I could go back and redo it, maybe I would do things differently. And Mittermeyer doesn't really take well to this, because Mittermeyer kind of is the idealist. He's
a loyal Empire man.
He's a loyalist. He's a company man. He's not going to...
He thinks as long as we just do what Reinhard says, we'll get our just reward.
Yeah, but in a lot of ways...
But if Kircheis were alive, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad situation.
Indeed, if only Kircheis were here. But
we really should start a counter.
We really should just start counting how many times a character says, if only Kircheis were here. But yeah, so then we finally return to the FPA.
Mittermeyer thinks to himself.
Yes.
But I wonder what Yang Wenli is up to after winning the battle in such a dramatic way.
Probably dancing with pretty girls and partying it up.
I bet he's partying with a bunch of hot ladies.
And then we immediately cut to Yang fucking wrapped up in a blanket, suffering from a cold, and asking Julian to booze him up.
That's great. So good.
They've been apart for a while that I kind of forgot just how much I truly, like, of all the character interactions, like, they're a little bit more understated, compared to, to say Kircheis and Reinhard, but I truly love when Julian and Yang are together. They're wonderful. They have such a precious, like, relationship.
It's great. Like, yeah, asked him to booze him up because Julian's like, I'll make you some hot punch for the cold. It's just the thing.
Right, he's like, it's got tea. It's like it's got tea, honey, and wine. It's like, what's it like
wine, water, like hot water, honey, lemon.
Sure, something like that.
Nice hot toddy type thing.
Yeah,
and Yang just says, leave out everything but the wine.
Yes. I will never get bored of their dynamic. And then because Julian is such a good kid, he can't help but spoil Yang a little bit. So
put extra wine in that.
Yeah, put extra wine in there, which of course puts a smile on Yang's face.
You're a good kid.
You're a good kid, Julian. You know when to give your fucking your mentor and like parental figure more alcohol. Fucking. I love these two so much, but the actual
he tells Yang he wants to truly formally enlist as a soldier.
Yeah.
I guess it's been all informal up till now, apparently.
Yeah, I guess
promoted.
Like, I don't know how that's fucking worked. Like, did Julie just fucking go over to Poplan and be like, "Hey, can you teach me how to pilot a space jet? I want to fly with you guys." Like, yeah. I don't know. It's just like a weird understanding, or maybe the FPA. Maybe here's the thing. I bet there's like a passage in the novel that literally explains like how branches of the military and the FPA work. But like, at least my own conceptualization of how the military works is like, you don't enlist in like.
There's no informal enlisting.
Right. You don't like it's. I mean, all right, to a certain degree, Julian probably has a little bit of nepotism going for him, right? Like you can go. Right. Not everybody can just approach, the Schenkopp, the famous Rosenritter Captain Schenkopp, and be like, "Hey, can you teach me how to shoot?" Or go to the, ace captain of the Spartanian squad, Poplan. But also, like, I don't think you would just let a kid fucking pilot a space jet if he weren't already part of the military. But
yeah,
I think it's kind of that's kind of the less important part. The more important part about this conversation is Julian kind of actively making his own choice, his own, to the best of his extent, to the extent of his age and experience, his own informed choice about what he wants to do with his future. And he's decided that his future is he's going to be a soldier. And he's not going to be the bad kind of soldier. He's going to be a good soldier. At least so he says. Oh God, so he says right now. He's going to be a good soldier that protects the innocents and protects democracy. And a part of me just fucking
bless this child.
Bless this beautiful, idealistic child that is too good for this dirty, shitty era he was born into.
It's true. And Yang Wenli goes into this giant spiel about how army is of tools of violence, but there's different kinds of violence. Not good violence and bad violence, but violence to control and oppress, and violence to liberate. So kind of good and bad violence.
Kind of, basically. But yeah, there's kind of this fantastic, like, as somebody who studied history in college and eventually ended up minoring in history, I actually really love this kind of pseudo speech from Yang about essentially why he decided to pursue history. Like, we've always heard, Yang's a historian. He wanted to be a historian. He studied history in college. But this is where he finally explains why he believes not only is history so important, but why history is so fascinating. And he starts off by informing Julian that, like, armies are intrinsically violence, right? And with violence comes power. And the problem with armies is that armies that belong to someone in power will intrinsically and inevitably use their violence to oppress people as they become their own form of power in and of themselves. Yeah. And that oftentimes we cannot defeat the army. We cannot defeat fascism. At least we cannot do it through traditional ways, that as trite as the saying is that the pen is mightier than the sword, like
their crime is going to be exposed even if it takes hundreds of years.
Right, like
can be vindicated by history that what happened was really bad.
Right, like if we may not be able to defeat Kaiser Rudolph, through military means, but through history, through the recordings of human progress, we can expose his horrible deeds. We can show the current generation like why and how such things came to be, and how we can hopefully avoid them in the present. That he basically says that the pen can impeach history.
Yeah.
That
we couldn't make Rudolph pay for his crimes then, but we can make sure he goes down in history as a hated figure.
Yes. And oh man, just what a fantastic, I think if anybody ever asks me again, like, gee, why do you study history?
This line.
I'm just gonna fucking bust out this part next. Just like, history isn't just a record of our past; it is a proof of our advance to the present. Like, it's basically just a really nice way of saying the old historian chestnut of like, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it. But like, it kind of gets to the more intrinsic core of like, yes, history isn't just a record. Like, there's often, sorry, we're going very long this podcast, no. But I'm going to go to a little bit of another tangent here. But there's kind of there's a bit of a weird counter reactionary movement in the I guess you could say the historian community, where a lot of maybe less informed people are saying, shouldn't history be objective? Isn't history just about the facts? Like, isn't history just about when such and such was born, what acts they did, and how they lived their lives? And the thing is that, no, history has never been that, and it never should be. History is inherently editorialized, because
someone has to choose what's important to write down and what's not important to write down.
That's why, up until roughly the 1950s, history was about great and usually mostly white men, because historians decided those were the most important people. And so naturally society formed to believe that those were the most important people. It's only recently that we've kind of begun to realize that, historiography is its own craft within history. How you these are words that often have loaded meanings, but how you choose to editorialize history, how you choose to propagandize it, how you choose to narrativize history is actually a deeply important aspect of history itself.
Yeah.
Read any, if you ever want to have a real trip, read any old history book about an even older event. Like, read a history book written in the 1900s about the Civil War. Like, if you want to know where all that fucking lost cause myth bullshit comes from, read an old history book, because the historians of the time decided, these are the important things to report about history. And of course that can go both ways. Of course that means that history can inherently become biased of one of two ways on the political spectrum. I don't want to hope to ever diminish that, but it's more that the sooner that we as historians, or not me as a historian, as I'm not going to claim I'm a historian, but the sooner that historians and society as a whole recognize that history is often the narrative that is crafted by those who choose to write it, the better that we can then approach it from the more nuanced position that perhaps it requires.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the excellent part of Yang's statement on history, right? It's not just a record of the past. It's not just numbers. It's not just dates of who lived and who died and when such battles happened. It is the
proof that we exist as a people.
Right. It is the one thing that we as the human race have that no other organism on the planet is capable of doing, is, we can record our history. We can record our past. We can write down what people long dead accomplished, and we can take lessons from that. No other creature on the planet can do that. And, not to get too stoner on a Saturday night and be like, whoa, man, That's crazy, but it kind of is in a way. It fuck, man. Just
yep.
Just Yang Wenli. That dude's got a great speech for basically any goddamn occasion.
Indeed.
Man, I'd invite that man to MC my wedding. Shit. You just know he'd have some real good ass shit to say. But anyways, sure.
Where's
going
the open
on?
Bar?
Yes, where's the open? First of all, before I begin this speech, where's the open bar? With that said, let us begin. But we finally end the episode with the FPA being shady FPA fucks, as they are wont to do, kind of basically planning on
discussing with Phezzan people how we can bring down Yang Wenli.
As if Yang Wenli is a person who needs to be brought down in the first place. And we get this great but also horrible statement from one of the characters that, isn't that the great thing about being in power, about being a politician, is that if you can't get things done with money, you can use your power to disenfranchise those who oppose you while benefiting yourself. And
if you don't have that power, you can always use your money to buy the power.
Yeah. And it's boy, if there was ever like a stronger repudiation of this idea that like, oh, people are in power because they earned that power, or people are rich because they earned that money. It's like, no, motherfucker, those things are circular. They're cyclical. Like one just leads to the other, and they just maintain it indefinitely.
Because they can profit from it.
But
Boris Konev thinks it sucks.
Yeah,
too,
Konev.
apparently.
Yeah, Boris Konev certainly does not like this.
They sent him to like spy on Young or something, but we haven't seen him doing much.
We haven't seen him doing a lot of spying. Period. Yeah, I don't really know when that's going to come into play.
Still curious if he's related to Ivan Konev.
Yeah, a brief note. We also get a little bit of the Empire. Oh yes. Yes, that was his name. Thank you for reminding me. I almost had forgotten it. This sickly
man,
the biggest number one Mecklinger fan in the galaxy.
Yep, being read Earth Cult scripture.
Yeah,
as he's lying in bed.
And we have.
I like that I do like that they don't immediately bring up that's Earth Cult scripture or anything at all.
They lead
it's just if you're paying attention to what's actually being said.
Yes.
They're totally talking about Earth.
Totally. And so Kuhnmel kind of has a weird breakdown that actually is in many ways a very good, very dark mirror to Yang's statement. Because as much as I love Yang's statement about why he studied history and his advice on, to Julian about how to become a proper soldier, Julian does kind of briefly bring up a very brief, kind of half-joking aside of, well, you need people like me doing great important things so that historians like you have something to write about. Which, is I choose to interpret that as a joke because, look, man.
He was saying they need great people like Yang, or else historians have nobody to study.
Oh, yes, you're right, my bad. Yes, that's the way it went. But because then Kuhnmel kind of has his own kind of dark mirror revelation to that, which is, oh God, I'm going to die, and I'm going to die having done nothing. Or what he believes to be nothing. He believes that he has not lived a life that's, he believes he's not lived a worthwhile life, and that...
Well, when you're comparing yourself to Leonardo da Vinci and Togrul Beck,
yes.
I mean, you're going to come up wanting.
Yes, and so he kind of... he has this revelation that I need to do something, anything, that will ensure that I am remembered in the annals of history. And we kind of get a little bit more foreshadowing from our narrator that some bad shit that's going to rock the core of both the FPA and the Empire is soon to come.
Yeah.
And kind of making good on the also very ominous foreshadowing from the previous 3 episodes that Kuhnmel is gonna be the catalyst for some real ratchet shit coming up.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I'm very curious because I don't mean to be ableist or whatever, but a part of me initially looks at Kuhnmel like, oh,
what could this guy do?
The fuck you gonna do? Like, you lay in bed all day and write fucking Mecklinger fan fiction or something, like, yes, we all know that your Mecklinger, your Mecklinger cross Reinhard Lemon fan fiction is number 2 on, all our fucking whatever that site is called. But like, what could you actually do, But that's the thing, right? Like, Legend of Galactic Heroes always has a trick or 15 up its sleeve. Indeed. It always has ways to really catch us off guard, and in some ways, foreshadowing so hard that Kuhnmel is about to do something has me almost pretty confident that whatever it does will still catch us off guard.
Yeah.
So, very much looking forward to that.
Indeed.
But
yeah, it's an interesting 3 episodes.
Yeah. I think we're gonna call it a podcast here. Approaching 100 minutes. Apologies for the kind of bloated podcast. There were just a lot of really great stuff to talk about this week. Definitely. Yeah. I think maybe you agree with me here, Iro. Kind of maybe the strongest trio of episodes we've gotten in season 2 so far.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we close it, do you have any closing thoughts about this trio before we wrap up?
I think we've covered pretty much all of it.
I think I would agree. I think we've done a pretty good job of covering our bases. So with all that done, let's get into housekeeping. So
I think by the time this podcast is out, all of the year-end stuff
will the year-end stuff be out? All right. In that case, let's talk about that real quick. So for those of you listening to the podcast, maybe you're aware, maybe you're not. That's totally fine. We also write and host the podcast on a blog called theglorioblog.com, where Iro and I and the rest of the editors at the blog kind of cover anime throughout the year and occasionally podcast about it as well in our sister podcast, the GLORIO Chat.
I think our top 10 would be out by the time.
Yes, and so at the end of every year, we not only does every member of the blog kind of write their own bespoke end of year post that we don't really have any hard rules. It's not a top 10 list. It's not an awards post. Basically, everybody just gets a chance to kind of write about the anime that aired in 2018, kind of air their thoughts, and it's not always just about the anime that aired in the year, but also the anime we watched in the year. So, for example, Legend of the Galactic Heroes might come up in a couple of posts, So, keep an eye out there if that's what you're interested in. But in addition, we also do a top 10 anime of the year list. Of course, these are just our opinions. We don't say it's an objective list, but just the anime we kind of arrived at as our favorite 10 of the year. And then we're also going to be doing a podcast where we kind of discussed our top 10 picks and maybe talk about a couple of anime that didn't make the top 10, including including the actual secret number 1 anime of 2018, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Sorry to spoil our top 10 list, actually.
It's
number 1.
Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Legend of the Galactic Heroes wins all of the awards. Every award just goes to Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It's crazy. We never saw it coming, but somehow it just swept all of the awards. But in all seriousness, if you're interested in hearing our takes on anime that aren't Legend of the Galactic Heroes,
more recent anime,
maybe give that a listen. But I'd say with all of that taken care of, I think we can wrap things up. So to finish off the housekeeping, you can also listen to the podcast on iTunes and Podbean and wherever podcasts are aggregated and shared, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And you can watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes on High Dive.
Yes,
VRV.
And VRV. VRV. I don't know how it's pronounced.
Well,
I won't
hopefully
pretend to
they'll
know.
put that on Crunchyroll. That'd be rad.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Put Legend of the Galactic Heroes on Crunchyroll now that they got their deal set up.
Got that deal.
Yeah, exactly.
On High Dive.
Let's see. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube. If you just Google Legend of the GLORIO Heroes YouTube, you'll find it there because we don't have a URL, but maybe if all you lovely listeners subscribe, we might someday. Leave a review, tell your friends, tell your enemies, all that good stuff. And, I think off the top of my head, I think that's going to do it for a podcast. So, as always, thank you all for listening. We always appreciate it. We read all the comments. We don't always get time to respond to all of them, but we always love to hear what you guys have to say about our very fresh
misinformed opinions.
Or misinformed opinions, or our lack of knowledge about novelists or philosophers from history.
Yeah.
But, we always appreciate it. And let's see. Iro, thank you. Thank you for accompanying me. Of course, yeah. You're welcome. Yes, thank you, me. I hope you all have a happy holidays and a happy new year. And
at this point.
Oh yeah, probably had at this point. Yes, my apologies. Yes, I keep forgetting that we're recording this a couple days before Christmas, but you guys will be listening to this probably almost maybe right around the New Year. So in that case, have a happy New Year's. And we'll see you all next year. Well, we're still gonna be doing this. We're still going to be talking about Legend of the Galactic Heroes next year. We got a lot of episodes left to go through and a lot of takes left to give. Until next year, we'll see you all amongst the sea of stars.